So in the last one, I'm going to use exactly the same motions as I did in the first one. So for anyone who wasn't in the first opposition, the motions that I'll use are Turkey and the EU, so Turkey should be admitted to the EU. This House would ban all advertising, and this House, did I even have a third one? No, right, those two. One of those is intended to be a real-world debate, Turkey and the EU. One of them is intended to be a magic land debate, so this House would ban all advertising. Just to explain, in some debates you will have motions which are very clearly about the real world as it is. So this House believes that Israel should pull out at Golan Heights. This House believes that that a second Rwandan genocide should be accepted by that of the Hutus against the Tutsis and the Tutsis against the Hutus, or whatever. Real world, either we should do something or we shouldn't. We also increasingly, these days, whether you believe in them or not, have magic land motions. So at Euros, this House believes that only women should bear arms, right? Clear magic land, there's no basis for that in reality. No one's going to go to all of the men and say, give me your gun. And no one's going to realistically say, from now on, only women can have guns. The debate is supposed to be at an intellectual level, and ban all advertising clearly is at that intellectual level. You can't actually ban all advertising. So I'll use those two. So everything said, if the first proposition have made an argument, for example, about admitting Turkey to the EU, and they have made a statement about, well, give me an argument that proper likely to come up with. You've all done this debate a million times. Sorry?
For accepting or not accepting?
We are accepting Turkey into the EU. I am Turkish. Sorry?
It's fun.
Because it's fun to okay, I wouldn't deeper analyse that.
If you bring Turkey into the Western world and not into the Islamic world.
Okay, so there are two arguments there, incidentally. And that's the other thing that you should notice. The two arguments there, one is we want to make Turkey more Western, whatever that means, you have to unpackage that. Two, that we don't want them to go and seek alternatives because that would be damaging. So it's the one argument that you might want to say is that Turkey is not going to remain static forever. It has two roads open to it and it will take one or the other. Now to actually argue that in the first proposition team, for that to be unanalysable for you on the second half, it would have to have, as you all know, the statement of what it is, it would have to have an explanation of how that's going to work, and it would need some real-world examples of how perhaps other countries faced that in the past. Now, if they have under-explained it, that is, if they haven't explained the process through which Turkey would do that, the steps that would take Turkey to being more Western, and an analysis of why Western is good, and what Western is, why Western values would be good for Turkey. If they haven't done all of those things, the various steps, you can take that argument from them and say, look, first half talked about, and this is how you can phrase your extensions, first half talked about the Western world and Western liberal values. They talked about how that was important for Turkey. We want to analyse that within Turkey at the civil society level. Because ultimately this is about individuals within the Turkish state. We want to identify that, and we want to do that through a case study, a prism of women's rights in Turkey. And we're going to talk specifically about the hijab. For example, take it down to a level where you can analyse it and explain it in a way that is very different to the way that the first half had. Alternatively, if they haven't offered an analysis, an explanation, sorry, completely wrong words, evidence, so where this might have happened in the past, then you can do a case study. If you think that that argument is sufficiently important that you want to steal it, you can say that they analysed this on the top half. They talked about Turkey, they talked about Western liberal values. What we want to do is talk about other nations, and specifically we're going to talk about how the EU changed Ireland, Spain and the Central European countries which joined in 2002. We're going to do a case study of what happened there and how their values were changed and apply that to Turkey and therefore state that this is something that is realistic. So you either try to expand on the explanation or on the evidence if you feel that they haven't done enough. So that's I simply don't believe that everything that's been said is something to be scared about, even if Oxford A are on the top half. I don't know why I always say Oxford A, but they tend to be the ones that people are often scared of. So, is there something that you'd like me to sort of expand on that minor point? Although that's not minor. That's how I find about 50% of my extensions, by stealing. No questions about that. Yeah?
How should you present it? I mean, obviously, I'm not, obviously not presenting it as I'm stealing the first half's argument on.
No, well, you don't say that, obviously.
Obviously.
But you might want to say the sort of sentences that I'm using there. On the first half of the table, there was a lot of discussion about Western liberal values. So you say a lot of discussion about. There was some analysis of. What we want to present you with is a different prism through which to look at that. So we're going to look at this from a different point of view, from a different angle. Our angle is that of looking to the past through case study of previous cases to show how that process actually works and why we think because of that Turkey shares the same criteria. So you would use the language of adding to what has happened before. You would be quite explicit that this is something that exists as part of the debate already. You would state why it's insufficient at that point, and then explain, come in, why what you're doing is different. Hello, Shalom. Someone in Israeli.
לא, תודה. לא, עברנו חדר, תודה.
עברנו חדר, אז היה עם המקום לך למזגנים?
תודה.
מה, לא?
כן.
כן, כן, עכשיו בסדר, תודה.
The air conditioners.
Excellent. Really? Okay. Do you see sort of that type of language is something that you're going to get used to? We'll all have our own phrases. I'm not going to do what Will did in the last one and say there are specific phrases that you should use, because otherwise I'm going to get really bored at this tournament because we'll all be saying the same things all the time. Or I'll just have like beer and play bingo, and every time you use those sentences, I'll get drunk. There aren't specific sentences, but I think it's very good to be open and honest about what you're doing to the adjudicators. So to say, I recognise that this debate has already occurred in part on the top half, but for whatever reason, and you identify that reason, I believe that this way of looking at it is a better way of looking at it. So that is, one, if you're coming up with if you're basically coming up with deeper analysis, that deeper analysis, crap. Okay, this one's
No
now
budget.
dead. I'm back to the original one, but thank you. So we're back to this one. So deeper analysis. You either want to be coming up with try. Okay, so I thought you were sort of making a point I don't like.
You're welcome to write whatever you want.
Thank you.
It's better than your marker work.
So, just to like try to like attach this to some kind of theory. What we're looking for as judges from you, if you're an extension speaker and if you're offering us deeper analysis, new evidence that is more powerful as evidence than what has come before. And so that can either be in the form of a case study, so a part of the world that applies, or it can be a completely new statistic which then brings to a different reality that has not been talked about up to that point. So you have evidence. Two, if a process has been under-explained, to actually go through that process step by step. So a process might be, they might say on the first half, and let's do the Turkey debate, this time let's be in opposition. So we are now saying Turkey should not be admitted to the European Union. It's very likely that an opposition team, in fact you guys can do this amongst yourself, well, we'll do it out loud. If I were to make the argument as follows,